Hi, fifth grade. Welcome to the read and do portion of chapter 10. Tensions grow between the colonies and Great Britain. Today, you will be, give me a moment. You will be learning about King George III and how his point of view differed from that of the colonists. For this lesson, you will need your your interactive student notebook open to the read and do section, which can be found on page 64. So you'll need your interactive student notebook and open to page 64. You will need something to write with, and you will need your TCI open. So you can pause the video now to get your interactive student notebook, something to write with, and TCI logged in and ready to go. Press play when you are ready to continue. All right, we are going to start by examining this image here. What do you see? What words would you use to describe the clothing and surroundings you see in this picture? What words might you use to describe this man? This is an image of King George III of Great Britain. He ruled Great Britain from 1760 to 1801. During his reign, British soldiers and American colonists fought together in the French and Indian War. With the king's approval, Parliament passed many laws after this war that angered the colonists. You will learn more about this man who was so involved in the events that led to the American Revolution and the founding of the United States. So go ahead and go to TCI, the read and do section. You will be reading about King George III and his colonies in your student text. It looks like this. So it looks like this here. When you're done reading about King George III and his colonies, please press play so we can continue with the lesson. All right, so hopefully you were able to learn more about King George III. What were your impressions of King George III, as a young man? How did George's beliefs differ from those of the colonists? How did his perspectives differ? Oh, it's repeating it. How did his perspective? So now we were thinking about his beliefs, so what he believed in, and now we're thinking about his perspectives or his thoughts differ from those of the colonists. What personality traits made it difficult for him to reach a compromise with the colonists? So what about him? Was he stubborn? Was he arrogant? What about him made it difficult for him to reach a compromise with the colonists? So you're going to go back and look at your text about King George III and find some areas in this text where you think it describes his personality traits. So I'm going to take a moment to look at it with you as well, but you can pause the video if you'd like to do this on your own, scroll through and kind of find some places in this text that shows King George III's personality traits. So he's a hard worker, maybe? He was also very tough on himself. He was tough on others as well. Look, stubborn. He stubbornly held on to grudges. He's got a strong personality and caused trouble. He was very critical. He had a rigid attitude. So there are a lot of personality traits in this text. All right, so now that we've come up with some ideas about King George III's personality traits, we're going to keep those in our mind because we're going to need them on the next slide. So instead of being a problem solver, King George III was rigid in his opinions. So now, like I said, we're going to keep those personality traits in our mind, and we are going to fill out page 64 in our interactive student notebook. It looks like this. It says, after you've read the read and do section in your student text, think of words or phrases you would use to describe King George III. Place one word or phrase in each empty circle. So you can have stubborn, maybe. I think stubborn would be a good one to put in one of these circles. You're going to fill out the rest of the circles. So there are 6 circles. You need 6 personality traits from our reading and put them in these circles. When you're finished, we will go ahead and move on. So go ahead and pause the video now so you can fill in this chart and press play when you are ready to continue. All right. How did these traits affect the relationship between Great Britain and its colonies? So how did his personality affect the relationship between Great Britain and its colonies? All right, and we are going to look at page 65 in our interactive student notebook. It looks just like this. It has the little notebook picture on there. It says, review the words and phrases you have used to describe King George III. Think about how the history of the colonies was affected by the kind of man he was. You're going to write a short story telling what might have happened if King George had had a different point of view about the colonies. Identify some other personality traits and attitudes he might have had and describe how these could have changed history. Explain how some of the actual historical events might have been altered. In your story, use connecting words such as first, next, at the beginning, afterward, and finally to link your ideas. So think about how the history of the colonies was affected by the kind of man he was. So think about some other personality traits and attitudes he might have had and describe how they could have changed history. So maybe if he wasn't stubborn, what else could he have been to maybe help with the actual events going on or to help with the relationship between him and the colonists? You're going to write a little short story here. So you can go ahead and write your short story. Make sure to include some of the connecting words. When you are done writing your short story on page 65 in your interactive student notebook, you're going to go to the assignment in Google Classroom for Thursday, chapter 10, the read and do section, and click turn in. Thank you, 5th grade. Have a wonderful rest of the week.